Margaret is a smart and successful woman who works at a high position in her company. She always tries to keep everything under control. At home, she takes care of her daughter Abby all by herself. Margaret and Abby have a close bond, but Margaret is very protective of her. She always wants to keep Abby safe, especially now that Abby is getting ready to leave for college in another city. The idea of Abby leaving makes Margaret very nervous, even if she doesn't show it on the outside. At Margaret's office, there's a young intern named Gent. Gent lives with her boyfriend, and Margaret often talks to her about love, choices, and how to handle relationships. On the outside, Margaret looks confident and in control, but inside, she has her own problems. She has a quiet, secret relationship with a married man from her office named Peter. They meet in private, but Margaret doesn't have any strong feelings for him. This shows that she has become distant and doesn't allow herself to feel much anymore. One morning at home, Abby tells her mom that she found a broken tooth. It looks old and doesn't belong to her. Margaret feels very uneasy but doesn't say anything about it. She quietly throws the tooth in the trash and tries to forget it happened. That same day, Abby goes to her friend's house. Since the house is empty, Margaret invites Peter over. While he is there, her phone keeps ringing, but she doesn't notice because it's on silent. She's too distracted. Later, Margaret learns something shocking. Abby has been in a serious bike accident. Margaret rushes to the hospital and sees her daughter badly hurt. She feels deep guilt and blames herself. She thinks that if she had answered her phone, maybe she could have helped Abby or stopped it from happening. A few days later, Margaret goes to a professional seminar to represent her company. While sitting in the hall, she suddenly sees a man who terrifies her. Her face turns pale, her hands shake, and she quickly leaves the place. That night, unable to relax, she searches for the man online. She finds out his name is David Moore. Margaret knows this man from a very dark time in her life. He's someone she never wanted to see again. Time passes, and Abby once again asks to visit a friend's house. But Margaret says no without giving a reason. Abby finds this strange and starts to notice how oddly her mom is acting. That same night, Margaret sees a shadow outside the window. But when she checks, no one is there. Then, she smells smoke coming from the kitchen. She opens the oven and finds a dead bird inside. Instead of being scared, she looks at it strangely, almost like she feels something for it. Then, suddenly, she feels a strong pain in her stomach and runs. But then she wakes up. It was all a bad dream. After that, Margaret becomes even more cautious. She starts secretly following Abby, watching where she goes and who she meets. Abby gets frustrated and tells her mom that she's almost 18 and can take care of herself. But Margaret doesn't stop. She's too afraid something might go wrong again. One day, Margaret and Abby go shopping for clothes for college. While they are in a store, Margaret suddenly sees David again. Fear takes over her, and she quickly takes Abby and leaves before he notices them. The next day at work, Margaret is nervous and can't focus on anything. She leaves the office and goes to a nearby park to calm herself down. But there, she sees David again. This time, she walks up to him. David acts like he doesn't know her, but he says strange and confusing things. He talks about a child named Ben and says the child is inside him. These words shake Margaret deeply. Later, she notices one of her own teeth is missing. She now starts to believe that the tooth Abby found might have been hers, and somehow, David is connected to all of this. Feeling scared and unsure, Margaret goes to the police. She tells them about David and what he said, but the police say they can't help her. David hasn't broken any laws. He hasn't hurt anyone or followed her in a threatening way. He's only been seen in public places. Margaret feels helpless. She installs stronger locks at home and takes out a gun she had hidden years ago for emergencies. At work, Margaret is clearly not doing well. Gent, the intern, notices her sadness and gently asks if something is bothering her. After a pause, Margaret decides to finally tell someone the truth. She begins to share a secret she's been hiding for many years. When Margaret was 18, she took a break from college and traveled with her parents, who were scientists. They went to a remote place for research. There, she met David, an older scientist who seemed charming and smart. He got close to her parents and paid a lot of attention to Margaret. After some time, she moved in with him. Her parents trusted her and thought she could make her own decisions. At first, Margaret was very happy. David made her feel special for the first time. She did housework, cooked, and made drawings. David praised her and said she was inspiring. But slowly, David started acting strange. He made her do weird and painful things. He asked her to fast, meditate for long hours, and sit in positions that hurt. When she made mistakes, he told her to hurt herself. Margaret obeyed because she thought it was all part of something meaningful and deep. After a while, she became pregnant. David didn't want the baby, but she chose to keep it. She gave birth at home to a baby boy and named him Ben. She loved him deeply, but David got jealous of the baby. One day, he sent her out to buy things. When she came back, Ben wasn't moving. David told her that he had taken the baby inside him. His words were so strong and strange that Margaret believed him. She thought she could hear Ben's voice coming from inside David. As time went by, Margaret realized something was very wrong. She finally decided to escape. She took what money she could and ran away to America. She started a new life and never told anyone about David or Ben until now. Gent is shocked and doesn't know what to say. She asks Gent to keep her story a secret. Gent nods and walks away quietly, still trying to understand everything. Later, Margaret starts following David again. She keeps an eye on the hotel where he stays. One day, she sees him go into a cafe and follows him there. David talks to her in a calm voice and brings up the topic of Abby's father. It becomes clear that Abby was born from one of Margaret's past short relationships. David continues talking about strange things. He says Ben is still alive inside him and is in pain. He tells Margaret that if he dies, then Ben will also die. Margaret listens, confused and scared. David starts telling Margaret that if she wants to prove herself to him again, she must do something, just like she used to in the past. He asks her to walk to work without wearing shoes, barefoot, every single day. Margaret doesn't agree at first, but his strange and scary behavior makes her feel nervous. Before leaving, David puts some money on the table and also leaves behind the key to his hotel room, with the room number written on a piece of paper. Later, we see Margaret walking to work barefoot, just like David told her to. Her feet hurt, but she keeps going. That night, during dinner, Margaret tells Abby to stay away from strangers. Abby doesn't understand and asks why. Margaret finally gives her the man's name, David Moore. In the next part, Margaret is once again outside David's hotel, quietly watching. After he leaves, she goes inside and asks the person at the front desk about him. But they say no one named David Moore is staying there. If she wants to go into room 5, she has to book it herself. Margaret decides to use the key David gave her to sneak in. But before she can reach the room, the hotel worker suddenly sees her and starts yelling in a loud and angry voice. Margaret is so shocked by the strange reaction that she runs away quickly. She goes straight home, wraps herself in a blanket, and tries to sleep. But her sleep is troubled. In her dream, she sees a dark, shadowy figure standing behind her son, Ben. This dream scares her, and she wakes up in panic. Then she notices something very strange. Her body is producing milk, just like a new mother. The next day, Margaret becomes even more protective. She tells Abby not to go anywhere alone, and if she does, she must send her updates every hour. Abby becomes upset. Her mother is acting more and more strange, and she doesn't understand why. Margaret is behaving like someone completely different. Abby becomes so worried that she invites Peter over, the man Margaret had once been seeing. Both Abby and Peter are shocked at how Margaret is acting. They gently tell her that maybe she needs help, but Margaret refuses. She says she's just trying to keep her only child safe. Peter is quiet for a moment. He sees that something is deeply wrong. Before he leaves, he gives her the number of a psychiatrist, a doctor who helps people with emotional and mental problems. Later that day, Margaret goes into Abby's room to talk. Abby says she went to Margaret's office and asked around. She found out there's no one named David working there. Margaret says David is from her past and promises she'll fix everything. But Abby doesn't believe her anymore. She feels trapped and says that if this continues, she will leave the house. This upsets Margaret deeply. She knows she has to act before everything falls apart. That evening, Margaret finds David sitting by the river. She takes her gun and points it at him, but when she tries to shoot, she freezes. She can't do it. David quickly takes the gun away. He grabs her and forces her to listen closely. He tells her that she can hear Ben crying from inside his body. Margaret is frozen with fear and emotion. Then David tells her she broke their agreement by trying to hurt him. Now, she must obey him again. He says she must go to the park every night and sit in a painful position until he tells her stop. That night, Margaret is tired, both in her mind and body. But it's also Abby's 18th birthday. When Abby comes home, she calmly tells her mother that she's done with this strange behavior. She's now an adult and will make her own choices. She says she's leaving. Margaret begs her to stay. It feels like another big loss for Margaret. Still, she doesn't break. That same night, she follows David's command and goes to the park. She sits in a painful pose, shaking in the cold, lost and broken. The next morning at work, the receptionist tells Margaret someone is waiting for her. She walks in her office, and it's David. He calmly tells her that even though she has changed her life and name, there is still something missing inside her. He says Abby wasn't born out of love, but because Margaret was trying to fill a deep emptiness. According to him, only Ben can fill that space. Before leaving, he gives her a note with an address and tells her to meet him there that night. As night falls, Margaret prepares herself. It feels like she may not return. She records a video message for Abby, saying that if she is watching it, something may have gone wrong. She also writes a letter, sharing parts of her past and saying how much the past 18 years meant to her. She hopes Abby will one day understand, maybe when she becomes a mother herself. Margaret then goes to the place David mentioned. When she arrives, he once again asks her to touch his stomach and feel. She places her hand on him and hears something in her mind. It sounds like her son, Ben. Her emotions rise like a storm. She begs for her child back. Suddenly, she pulls out a knife. In one quick motion, she stabs David and ties him up. As he lies bleeding, David warns her again. If he dies, Ben dies too. But Margaret stays calm. She says she's going to act while David is still alive. Then, with shaky hands but a strong heart, she cuts open his stomach. What happens next is hard to explain. Margaret reaches inside and pulls out a real living baby boy. She holds him close and runs out of the room as fast as she can. In the final scene, Abby comes back home. She sees Margaret sitting calmly with the baby. Abby walks over, picks up the child, and smiles gently. It looks like she finally understands everything. She plays with the baby in her arms. Margaret watches her daughter, first with peace on her face. But slowly, her expression starts to change. Her smile fades. A look of confusion, sadness, or maybe even fear crosses her face.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.